The second you get sick of something, of your logo or your brand or your colors, whatever, you got to remember the rest of the world is just starting to remember you for those colors. I once looked over somebody's shoulder at their computer. Their calendar was up and I'm like, oh my God, when do you work? It was just phone call,
Welcome, everyone, to the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast, where we dig into all the pressing issues, all of the hard stuff around marketing a business in the modern era. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Ian Kentel of Outsource Marketing in the Toronto area, and Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Louis or surrounding areas. Ken Tucker, also of Changescape Web, is on special assignment today. So today I'd like to introduce our special guest, Stuart Cohen. Stuart is on a mission to educate others on the important role that images and video play in marketing. He's big into brand identity, client retention. He's got a whole lot of stuff going on. His business is SC Pictures. Stuart, welcome. And of course, toward the end, we're going to let you tell everyone how to find you. But just thanks for being on the podcast with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a journey to get here, aligning all our schedules. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, sometimes that's one of the challenges when you try and coordinate multiple people, multiple topics, and different days. So again, we appreciate your flexibility. Ian, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. Yeah, Stuart. So talking about personal connection, how does that play a role in your business and in landing jobs?
I think personal connection, like anything, I think is really, really important. I think the first time you land a client, a lot of times it's really they hire you because of the work or maybe price. But I do feel like repeat clients becomes personal connection, and repeat clients is all connection. So unless you know somebody from elsewhere to get the first job, a lot of times they might bid it out to people they don't know, but then the second job, it all becomes personal connection. So I'm a big believer in nurturing relationships once you have them.
Yeah. And in your sales process and in the way that you interact with clients and prospects, do you find that there's even a nurturing process in that sales process where they might not be ready to buy right away? They're calling you to get more information. Like, what does that look like for your business?
For what we do, there's a huge, long nurturing process because people don't always need what we do right now. So depending on how you meet them, if you meet somebody because they're bidding a project out, okay, obviously there's an immediate need. But a lot of times we're just meeting people because they are potential clients. And it might be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, even before they have something that's right for us or for me. So yeah, I continue the nurturing thing and I enjoy it, actually. I really do.
And what would you say? Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I would say we've heard examples of, nurturing, the importance of it, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years after the initial connection, finally something comes together.
Well, it's true. And even we all could think of situations like that a lot of times you meet somebody, you just don't need their services right then. But the biggest challenge is how do you stay front of mind even if they don't need you? Because when that moment comes, when they do require your services, if somebody else jumped in the door the day before, and you're not memorable to them, well, you're not going to get it. I hate when I get on a call with people and they're like, yeah, we just finished this big production. I'm like, that one hurts. That hurts.
Why didn't you call me?
Yeah.
So how do you stay top of mind with your prospective clients and even existing past clients?
That's a loaded question. Obviously, I try to stay top of mind. I try to do it with personal reach out. Then we do a lot of trade advertising to our industry, to the advertising marketing community. Try to make some appearances like this guesting on a podcast. You try to keep your name out there just so people are aware of what you're doing. And it's that balance. Like, how do you keep your name out there without like you don't want to bombard them with emails or something, so people just get sick of you. So somehow you just got to find that sweet spot that's a low roar, that you're somewhere in the back of their head, but they might think hopefully they think of you and they need you, but you're not like a bug.
Yeah.
I do remember early on in my career, somebody saying to me, because I think I might have been, it was back in the day when we used phones and people answered phones. And I remember this guy saying, yeah, no, I got it. You're on track here. I got you. Don't worry about it. I will call you when this thing, when we're ready to move forward. So to me, that was a sign of, okay, well, either I was a little too much or, but you never know what is the exact right amount. I think it's very unique per individual.
It varies person to person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of an art trying to figure that out. And, early on, especially, sometimes I'll ask people, I'll say, okay, how would you like me to follow up, or when is a good time?
I think I like to do that as well. I think, asking how they want you to follow up is a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some people
them for permission, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Is it okay if I follow up with you in 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever is appropriate?
Yeah.
Right.
And usually when people ask that, like when, I always say, just try to stay in my vision, but not in my face, So yeah, I think it's pretty important. And I think getting out in public, like in terms of being pretty verbal within your industry is important. I think, that keeps you top of mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we'll get into that a little bit later, the so-called authority building, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Being more than just a little squeaky voice, being, someone of import, someone that has something to say, and being recognized for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was going to say, we shift gears into the next question, or Paul, did you have something else you want to say?
I gotta say, Ian, I'm going to interrupt, and you guys could always cut this part out, but that logo next to your head, I just keep seeing a Toronto Blue Jays logo there,
Yeah, well, it's subliminal.
Yeah, exactly.
Go Jays.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, so let's jump over to the next question then. So, if we look at across, we all work with a lot of different businesses and different industries. So if you take an industry maybe that's constantly in flux, although you could argue that's all of them right now with AI and everything else coming into the mix, but some are more volatile than others. But for industries that are constantly in flux, especially, let's say, how do you keep up with that? How do you innovate? How do you stay relevant with those industries?
It's a good question, because I think what we're seeing today is more like the ground is shifting a lot quicker, and it never really stops. And it used to be, there was a little bit more stability. Like, say, people might have moved jobs more or moved jobs back then, but yet the companies and the structures of the companies were staying the same. I think what we're seeing today is mergers, acquisitions, different people working, like there might be one buyer for 5 companies now. And I think personally, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, comes in our CRM. So if I typed in your name, your LinkedIn profile pops up as well, like straight from LinkedIn. So at least I see if you just switch jobs. It used to be you'd have to go back and forth, and now you could kind of see it real time. And I think that's really important because, like I was saying, with your first question, is like the best client is the client you already have. So even if they jump from one company to another, theoretically, they're still your client.
In terms of overall industries, volatility, is there anything you see going on there, or any things you do to keep, not necessarily with the people we started talking about personal relationships, but that we go broaden out to industry segments, and how you stay up on what's going on, or maintain that authority presence that we kind of want to get to?
Well, I mean, okay, so I'm a lot in the publishing, marketing, advertising space, or in-house marketing agency space, which is in flux a lot. It changes probably more than a lot of other industries. So there's always been a certain level of change. And I read a lot. I read emails, I read blogs, I read industry trend reports. I actually, which I know this is not very common, but I actually still read the newspaper. And I was just telling somebody earlier, it's like I've been out of town and, so I turned them off, and it's really old school to get a paper, but I was flipping through and I saw something about a client that I would never have seen. And it's not like I read the paper, but I, in the morning, like I'll have a cup of coffee and I'm just standing there, flip the pages. It's like, oh, you see something about like, the C-suite of a company I deal with, and they're talking about changes in the company. So what do I do? Like that day, I just, call my contact, in the marketing department, and say, hey, I was seeing this, da da da. So they know that you're out there and you're thinking of them, and people love to know that you care about them as an individual and as a company more than just the paycheck they're going to give you.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit and talk about volatility in industries. We can always edit this out if it doesn't make sense. But AI, I mean, we almost can't go a podcast without AI coming up somewhere. Are you seeing uses of AI? Are you seeing counter uses of AI? What's your take on AI?
Funny you should say that. This week's been a big. Somebody wrote a book about it, like a whack on the side of your head or something for me, because like that genie's not going back in the bottle. Now, granted, we use AI for everything we can in terms of apps and trend reports or treatments, everything up until production, and how do we shorten the whole production cycle? We've been using everything as it comes out. Now we're getting to a point where AI is creating content. And I think some of it is really, really good. And I'm going to be the first one to admit it. It's really good, and it's just getting better. And if you think of it, the AI genie really only came out of the bottle, at least in content creation, like it was November will be 2 years. So it was just 2 years ago. And, everyone was saying, oh, it's never going to affect us. It's got people have 6 fingers and stuff like that. I mean, think how fast it's come. So I do think it will play a bigger part in what we do. I do feel, we've evolved and continually grown with every new iteration of technology, whether that be a digital camera or say the really prevalent use of Photoshop, which I remember when that came up, people say, oh, it's not real, or people gonna, there needs to be an emblem on it that says it was altered with Photoshop. Well, that lasted 20 seconds, So I think we're going to see it. I think it's going to make our job different. And I think I'm still going to be here because we lean into every new technology. Now, one thing on this call, I was on Saturday with a bunch of producers from around the country and some international, is they were saying how in the US, they're still not using AI on, like they're not publishing anything like that's a copyrightable piece of material that's made out of AI because it's still a little gray area as to who actually owns it. Is it going to come back and bite us? Yada, yada, yada. But somebody was on the call from Colombia, South America, and he's like, we're using it everywhere and nobody cares. They're all using it. It's out of the bag. So I do feel like that's going to happen here in a second. I mean, there's got to be a way similar maybe to like, ASCAP in music or something like that, that if it's an AI generated piece of content, maybe revenue will be divided amongst, it might be hundreds of thousands of contributors. I don't know, but something's going to happen because we're going to use it,
That would be an interesting shift if you think of even before AI, going back to Google and all of the data they're gathering and what they're doing with it and how they're monetizing it. It would be an interesting shift if that flipped back to the sources of the data start to get some revenue from it.
Absolutely. And actually, then I was thinking about, at least just in my world, okay, so what would happen with cameras? Granted, I mean, this little thing changed my life, little iPhone, in terms of now everybody has a camera and everyone has a good camera. So
Mhm.
what if we do start making content, making still photography, say, out of all AI? So what are Canon and Nikon? What are they going to feel? What are they going to do? How are they going to pivot? Now I know they're bigger companies, but it is a huge question how things will evolve. Now people love taking pictures, so people are still going to have cameras and go out and take pictures. But in the name of commerce, you know, um, how will it be affected?
Paul, you've been quiet. You want to jump in or take the next question? Lead us on.
Yeah, I'll take the next question. And this one's interesting. Is we were actually talked a little bit on our last podcast about how if you watch a commercial from an automotive manufacturer, they don't tell you anything about the product you're buying. It's all about, hey, buy this car and your whole world will be better. So how can companies create really good content but still get their marketing message across?
Well, I mean, storytelling is one way, I believe. If you think I'm leaning into what you said about car companies and about, you look at a car commercial and it's a family hiking in Colorado, or they're on a picnic, or they're, going down the PCH. But first of all, the one thing to know about that right now is none of that stuff's shot in real life anymore. It's all shot on a virtual stage. So it's all being shot on the stage. So all that, oh, we're in nature. Yeah, that's not happening. I mean, so in essence, they're telling a story. They're telling you that you're going to have this great, comfortable trip to the coast, camping with your family because you have a Chevy Tahoe or something like that. And it works. And people look at it and, oh, it's a sexy car. It looks great driving down the road. Oh, look at the cup holders. Look at the TV screens. And they're telling a story, and you're expected to pick up on that. Now, that's not really hard marketing, but those are also big car companies that have big dollars to spend behind them. So, and that's, again, back to what we were saying earlier, that's a long sales cycle. If you think about buying a car, I don't know what the spec is on how often people buy cars, but what was it, every 3, 4, 5, 6 years? I don't know. But they have to be top of mind, because when you need a new car, are you going to go get a Chevy? Are you going to go get a GMC? Are you going to go get a Tesla? Who knows? I mean, so that's actually, it's a perfect example. I'm happy you brought that one up, Paul, because it's like, that's a really long sales cycle. I do feel like telling stories is important. I do feel like letting people know, in terms of a small business at least, some of the features that you offer, and you somehow need to integrate that into your storyline that you're telling them. Why is what we do and why is what you do better than the next guy? And, 9 times out of 10, it's a really subtle difference, because when you get to a certain level, everybody's doing a really good job. I mean, granted, there's some, but think about it. When you're at an upper echelon of what you do, chances are your competitors are pretty darn good as well. So, yeah, what's the value add? What can you tell people that's going to make them want to connect with you more than the next person? It's a good question. I think it's something we all need to think about. And I think it has to do with being honest, being authentic. And I think the honest and authentic is important, because I think people could smell, BS like miles away these days, because, the buying public is pretty educated and sophisticated now.
I like the car example because, at the basic level, a car or a truck is a car or a truck, right? But how they're positioned, and like you said, the going camping in the woods on the weekend with the family versus the luxury driving down the city to the Met Gala or whatever, they're all positioned differently, and that's the psychology they're tapping into, the emotions they're trying to tap into, and their brand really gets defined around that.
Right. But truly, the thing is, I think we landed on something really valuable, because we were talking sales cycle, and that's a long one,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a long build. So, if you're going to come out with a new car, you got to figure it might be 3 years, before Ian decides that he even needs a new car. And how is he going to remember that that's the car he wants?
If you think of translating that then to a small business, how does that translate? I think part of it is don't try and be all things to all people, right? Know who your ideal clients are and how you want to position.
That's true. And I do hope the sales cycle for most of us is shorter, than buying a car. But you're right. I do think you got to stay top of mind. You got to have a good value add. I do feel like a lot of companies really jump around and change their brand and look and story too often. You could look at, and sometimes, some shareholders feel like they need to, but you think of long running campaigns, like on bigger advertisers, you think about Flow, or it's funny, it's all insurance. You think about Aflac, with the duck. They stick to it, and who Aflac is. There's no question, right? Whereas, I think Bridgestone tires, or I don't know why I gravitate for them, but it's like, I know I've seen a bunch of media around them, but I couldn't tell you what they stand for, So it's granted, I know we're talking small businesses, so we're totally off track, but at the same point, it's like, who are you and what are you offering? What are you trying to sell? How are you trying to sell it? And I think especially depending on the size of a small business, if you're talking about a small business of like under, say, 10 people, chances are there's a founder still involved in it. And the company at that point could and should and probably does have a personality that it's had all along and that it maintains, like it or not, but that's the personality. I think when you get into a company, like it's still considered a small business if you have 50 people. That's when you start to get, are we a small business? Or are we a big business? And how do we stay relevant? That makes it tougher, I think, to tell your story. Yesterday, we were in I learned yesterday it was a large company that dealt with the HVAC world. And I always thought it was a small player. But I walked into these offices and I'm like, whoa, like, where are we? But evidently it's like not franchised out, but they have, divisions all over the country. So, but again, I couldn't tell you what their personality was. And I know, just say in that space, I've heard, whether through friends and or reading, and I know guys doing this, like a lot of these small mom and pop, plumbing, electrician, HVAC, like service companies and lawn companies, they're being rolled up now by these private equity groups that somehow feel like if they could create a bigger company, they could unlock value. And that's really going toward the heart of the small business, the American small business,
Yeah.
And I feel like in that space, we've used a couple of these larger companies, that, it's just one phone call. It's not like you're trying to track down, Joe Plumber or something. But every time, man, they're always trying to hustle you. They're always trying to upsell you, or as opposed to like our HVAC guy, he's like, no, somebody told you that. You don't need that. I just need to change this part. Here, it's going to cost, whatever, $50. Whereas you got a bid from a big company for $4,800. And so I question, right there. And then I'm sorry, I'm hammering on those companies, but you bring it up in mixed company, and a lot of people are having the same experience. So who are these companies, and are they developing good reputations? Are they the people you could call, like the plumber that you've used, or your lawn guys that have done your lawn for 10 years? That you trust. It's like, hey, something's dying here. They're not going to try to resod your whole lawn. They're going to try to just fix it for you. So again, it's what is the story? Who are your partners, and who do you trust, and who do you call back a second time? I think that's the crux of our conversation too.
One of the things I really heard that kind of jumped out at me, popped into my head, is that, you're you use the insurance companies. They're very identifiable. You know their story. You know the characters even down to the individual players. And their campaigns tend to be more evolutionary than revolutionary. I think the revolutionary, they're like, we're going to go this way this week. No, we're going to go that way next week. Then it's like you're left confused. Who is this company and what do they stand for? I think, is that a kind of a safe assessment of at least the first part of what you said with the?
Well, no, and I think you put it really well. I mean, I think the evolutionary thing, especially for a big business like what we're talking about, like the insurance, is probably better. I think the tenure of a CMO at a big company and even a medium-sized company is so short. And I know I could throw out what I think it is, but it keeps changing. But it's usually less than 3 years, I think, is the stat.
I was going to say 2 to 4. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfair to, I'm not going to say to the CMO. I think it's unfair to everybody, actually. But the CMO who comes in feels like they were hired because a change needs to be made. So that tends to be revolutionary because that's why they were brought in. The other thing we've seen happen, though, is that for some reason they are asked to move on before what they're proposing to change is even permeated the market. It might have just come out, and next thing you know, I mean, I've worked on jobs like that they're gone. I've worked on jobs that before we've completed the job, the creative team is gone. We just did a job earlier this year that the chief marketing officer was gone before they even edited what we shot. And I'm like, well, you're kind of not giving the person a chance at that point, And so I am a believer in evolutionary. I think at least if you're a small business, as to what we're talking about. But then the other thing, you could look at airlines, and what are those? Those are revolutionary because they have a new campaign. Oh, we have more room in coach, or we have new boarding processes, or everyone's just trying to get a next thing that's going to stick in people's heads. But how about, we're friendly and we're going to help you get to where you want to be. I mean, and just evolve from there.
Yeah, Southwest is under a lot of fire right now. Yeah, nobody says, "Oh, we've just squeezed our seats closer together." And
yeah, they should just tell you the truth.
Yeah, Southwest is under a fire a lot right now because a lot of people would say, and I'm one of them, that they've lost what they were founded on. They've lost their identity and what made them different. And now they're moving to be just like every other airline.
Well, yeah. Especially like come Jan, with the assigned seats, we'll see how that works. Yeah. I mean, granted, sometimes you didn't. If you were going on a long haul trip, you weren't going to go on Southwest because you want to get assigned seats. But they're starting to fly like to Hawaii now. So it's like maybe it is. They're changing. And they used to be, they're based in Texas where I live. And they used to be like, they were the bus of the state, you jump on and you're off in usually less than an hour and a half. And, you get to where you're going and you sit where you sit and it was fine. Everybody expected. You knew what you were getting,
Yeah.
One of the things
I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see if they could succeed because I think they're making a big effort and trying to roll out a whole new campaign and a whole new approach. And you want to see them succeed, really.
And they're a good company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question.
Yeah. One of the things you said earlier was about being authentic, and part of me cringes when I hear authenticity now because it's been so talked about, and there's examples now where you were talking about the founders being still in the business, and it reminded me of the origin stories that you hear of some of the businesses that started small, got big. They didn't really have a good origin story, so they made one up, and then
right.
It comes out in public that they didn't start in a garage, and
right.
So yeah, you need to be authentic, but people can sniff out inauthenticity, and you say the word, but
right. No, I know.
Yeah.
But you're right. It didn't used to be a word, and it used to be you either were or you weren't.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't need it. It's kind of like you don't need to tell somebody. It's kind of like when you meet somebody at a party, you don't need to say, "Hey, my name's Stuart and I'm friendly." They could tell if you're friendly or not, so just, and if they make up a story, so they make up a story, and maybe it would be funny to say, this story is made up, but, we think we were, born under a log, whatever, so,
One of the other things that you were talking about really jumped out at me, because I used to be in the corporate world in the marketing thing, so I totally understand the churn of marketing management. I experienced that myself, and I was involved in that. And one of the things that I observed was that the internal culture of brand was often far more critical and tired of their own brand in the businesses that I worked in than the people actually buying the product or service. And I thought that it really underserved the businesses when I observed that somebody would come in and they would try to recreate the whole brand again, because they didn't see the equity that was built up in the brand. They just felt like, hey, I can be like, Pepsi and redo my logo every 3 years or whatever,
Right. No, you actually, you're absolutely right. I think if you think about it, if you eat the same food every day, you're going to get sick of it.
Yeah.
But, the person that comes to your restaurant and only eats it once every 3 months is not sick of it. And they're not inundated with it. So I think that's a pretty valid point. And I think that's something that business owners should take to heart, is that, the second you get sick of something, of your logo or your brand or your colors, whatever, you got to remember that the rest of the world is just starting to remember you for those colors,
Yeah.
So take a breath before you, take a left turn,
Yeah.
And understand that not everybody sees your stuff every day, and not everybody's sick of it. We go through that with website evolution, and we just actually had this conversation. It's like, so why do we have to change this? We just got the last one where we wanted it, and it's working, but there's new technology and new stuff.
Yeah. Hey, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, how do you keep, in your industry and your business, how do you keep your product and your deliverables consistent from project to project? How do you bring consistency to that? For probably efficiency purposes, but also so that the people that you're working with know they're going to get the same high quality from you.
Sure. I think that's a great question. I think it goes back again to what is a small business, or who is the small business. And speaking, say, from where I'm coming from, we are indeed, with like under 15 people. It still has a lot of founder processes. And granted, if anyone changes them a lot, it's me, because I try to change them with industry changes. But you also want to deliver a level of quality. So I'm never doing it for price efficiency. It's more for efficiency and or simplicity for the client. If all of a sudden, the way, say, we used to deliver something feels clunky to the clients, but we had to do that because of that's where technology was then, I'm the first guy to say, no, we're going to streamline this and make it easier and smoother. And I think for us, at least, it's really about what's going to make it easier for our customers. What's going to make their, the whole journey smooth. And I think today also with everybody being squeezed for time, especially our clients, that corporate clients, I see them when they're here for meetings or for a shoot or for pre-pro. And I once looked over somebody's shoulder at their computer, their calendar was up, and I'm like, oh my God, like, do you have when do you work? It was just phone call. And so I really try to put myself in their shoes and think, okay, you could be as involved or as not involved as you want to be. I'm going to share everything with you every step of the way, but we will do it for you. And I really feel like people appreciate that. And I think when they're coming to us, at least, we charge a certain premium, and so they don't have to do anything. And that's kind of the service we provide. Mm-hmm. And I know in my industry now, because the cost of entry, I guess is the right word, in terms of technology and who could just hang out a shingle. Like anyone could hang out their shingle now, but 9 times out of 10, they don't provide the production services that we do. And so again, but then how do you differentiate? How do you let these potential clients know this is who we are, this is what we're going to do for you? But, okay, it's starting to get a little jumbled up, but part of it is like, I'm starting to think now that we need to tell everybody exactly what we're going to do for them. But yet, for the seasoned customer who's used to our level of service, they're going to say, why is he telling me all that? I'm just assuming they're going to do that because that's what they've done. That's anyone that we would hire does all that. But yet there are younger people coming into the industry, coming into business that are not aware of that. We've run into things, just say with casting actors, casting talent. And they said, oh, you're going to do that? I'm like, of course we're going to do that. And what about, securing wardrobe for them? I'm like, of course we're going to do that. That's all part of it. But there are people that just don't know that. So, and they're, as they kind of mature in their roles, they have bigger budgets, and they need to know that this is part of the show that they're supposed to get. That's part of the package. When you buy an airplane ticket, it comes with seats in the airplane. It might not be a big seat, but it comes with the seat.
I think
bad analogy. Sorry.
No, I think you make a good point. As we kind of evolve our businesses and other, our clients evolve their businesses, the difference between the people that have been with us for a while and the people that are starting out and the people we aren't even working with yet, the expectations and the operating modes and everything do shift a little bit. So staying on top of that. And I think you've got a good point there, recognizing that there are different people in different places and making sure that you're covered.
But I like what you said there, Jeff, about expectations. And I think I'm going to use that word somehow to start to try to explain it. Like, what are your expectations? We expect you to have these expectations or something, and somehow get it across. Like, you're not trying to school people, but you're just letting them know that we got you, we got you covered, and here's how, or here's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of our clients have these typical concerns. We hear this a lot. Does that sound right? What else do you have? There's a whole lot of different ways to phrase that, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The important thing about doing that too, even though you feel you might be saying things that people already know, is that, and I have to remind our clients of this all the time, your prospective customers do not live in a bubble, and they're being bombarded by your competitors constantly. And so if they hear that message from one of your competitors that, hey, we handle everything for you, and you guys have been doing that for years, but they haven't somehow encapsulated that in their vision of who you guys are, that can provide a competitive advantage to your competitor, and you don't want that, right? So
you're absolutely right. I think we hit on a really good point, and I hope everyone listening to this kind of takes that to heart, because it's true. I remember, going back to the example of the small business, like the home service area, somebody was in their spiel, they were saying how they make sure that they all wear booties in the house, and it's just like nothing you'd ever think about, but you assume if somebody's in the muddy yard, they're going to take their shoes off or wear booties, but no. But at least, so these guys were like, okay, so they care. They're gonna be careful. They're gonna take care of your home. And again, it's just nothing I ever thought about. But again, it does become a value add, just because you remember it.
Yeah, I knew an electrician that always said like they cleaned up their clippings. You know, if you've ever had an electrician in your house, they drop a ton of wire everywhere, little bits.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with arborists. I've had arborists who, you know, say that we're going to absolutely clean up your yard so you don't even know we were there, right? No chips whatsoever. Some of them even have vacuums, you know, like lawn vacuums to clean up after themselves. And that's, you know, something that can differentiate themselves, but they would take it for granted.
It makes a difference. And just say with us, you know, somebody once said about production, like film and photography, you know, it's, what is it, 5% about knowing how to use a camera and 95% about moving furniture, because we're always rearranging rooms. But one of the things is, you know, respecting wherever you are, respecting the facilities, because we're on location a lot in people's offices, or we're in homes, or, you know, just places of business, and respecting the property, even though we're paying for it, you still need to respect it. And, but that's something that, from what I've heard on the street, doesn't always happen. So, that goes far. People are like, wow, it's like you were never here. I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Paul, I think we're going to maybe shift the order up a little bit. Do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, sure, I can. I was going to skip over the question that I was going to take because I don't think it's relevant, but I can take this next one. That's fine.
Do whichever one you want.
So, paid media, what paid media do you utilize, and why do you choose to use them?
So for our outreach to our clients and prospective clients, it's evolved for over the years. You know, paid media, there used to be a lot of directories in our industry, in the production world, that would be like, we would pay to be in it, and then this company would distribute it to all the ad agencies, all the in-house marketing teams, and so on and so forth. That, I guess, would be considered paid media. And we always did that. You could talk about, say, LinkedIn today. Do you use a premium LinkedIn product? Would that be considered paid media, whether it's, you know, the premium level or the sales navigator level, or actually paid media like outreach, like ads on LinkedIn that are targeted to certain demographics? We do use that as well. And we just started using that. And so the thing about paid media, I think, is you have to reach people where they live. And the challenge, of course, and what we've all experienced in the last 10 years with just the proliferation of media, is, where do people live? You know, can you still, like, okay, I just this week, back to what I was saying about these printed directories, they were books that would go to people. I'm questioning going back in there, because people are remote. They don't go to the office. So they used to be delivered to their offices. I remember once somebody showing me around an ad agency. No, actually, it was AT&T. It was AT&T's headquarters. And this person said, yeah, down on this floor, this is where we get our mail. I'm like, do you get any mail? She's like, I don't know. I've worked here 6 months. I've been down here once. So that told me right there is direct mail is no mas, you know? And that, in essence, is paid media, is a form of paid media as well. So you got to start to think, where do they live? And how do you get to that spot? And today, I think with the intelligence of some of the apps and platforms that we're all using, they're all leaning into, yeah, we'll get you in front of people, but that's going to cost you X. And I guess that is paid media. And I do believe that we all need a certain level of paid media to get in front of people that we do not already know, or that are not on our radars for some reason.
It's all about omni-channel and the distribution networks. And you have to, like you said, you have to be there, because for a lot of small businesses anyway, paid advertising is becoming cost prohibitive. It's just,
oh yeah.
I mean, over the past couple of years, the cost of, like, Google Ads, for example, it's gone up by 40-50% easily.
And the challenge is, yes, you're absolutely right, Paul. And the challenge is, in our media licensing company, which is called Superstock, and it's a legacy company. The company's been around forever, for 50 years. I mean, I'm the newest owner of it, like for the last 5 years. But so it's stock photography, so licensing media, digital media assets. Well, they're the big players now that are publicly traded companies like, say, Getty Images or Shutterstock. Well, they bought the word, like Shutterstock. You could type in, you go right now and type in Superstock into your browser, and Shutterstock is going to come up because they virtually bought the word stock. And, and I'm like, oh my God, like, how do you win when you type it, when you do a direct, a search, and you still don't come up on the first page or in the first 3 lines? Like, how do you fight that? I mean, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it is. And then when it comes to this paid advertising, if we're running a Google Ads campaign for someone, we can do a brand campaign where we bid on competitors' keywords and their competitor's name.
Right. So
and
if you
like
guys do
said,
that, the Google ad, the Google ad space to me is still the Google and the Meta ad space. It's really interesting how that works in terms of, buying the keywords and getting in front of people. And I don't know what you guys feel like. How is there a metric, like how many views per 1,000? Is that the clicks per 1,000 ads? Like, is there a stat that you live by?
Well, with Google, it's click-through rate or interaction rate. It depends on what kind of campaign you're running. But what I've noticed, because we have some small business that are just spending a few $100s a month, which we tell them that they're wasting their money at that point.
Right.
And then we have a couple clients that they're spending $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And what I've seen, I mean, I'm not a big data company, obviously, but what I've seen in my experience is that if you're not spending $2,000 a month, you're not going to get results. You're not going to get a positive ROI. Now that depends on the competitiveness, depends on your industry, the competitiveness of your market. Now, if you're a defense attorney, you better be spending $20,000 a month.
Yeah.
Because some of those clicks are $300-$400 a click.
Yeah, no, it's a crowded space. Okay, so my experience, I will just share, is we did, for the licensing company, we did paid media like Google and Meta, and we started out low, like in the 2,000 to 2,500 a month. I think it was 2,500 to 3,000 a month, and we got absolutely nowhere, like just zero. And talked to this other outfit, they were like, look, if you're not dropping 10K a month minimum, you're not going to get anything, which I did plan on trying that. And I said to this guy, I'm like, listen, I'll spend 10K, I'll spend 50K as long as if you bring me back, 50,000 and $10, I'll spend 50 if it works,
Hey, at least they were being honest with you.
Yeah. But it's like, but to pay 3 or 4 or 5 for small business, it's a regular amount of money. It's $60,000 a year. And if you're not getting any kind of a return on it, man, that's a chunk. So
it is.
And the hard thing is, of course, it never happens overnight, right? You need a ramp up period. Yeah.
And and we've talked about this on other podcasts, is that Google says, oh, hey, we'll give you $200 in free ad spend. It's like, okay, that's a waste.
Yeah.
That's a couple days.
Exactly. $200. Yeah. So you mean Saturday night from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is free.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting though about the Google ad world, and I find that a lot of businesses don't understand this, is that even though there's lots of fluctuation in cost per clicks and that kind of stuff, at any given time, you can actually find out what the cost per click is for the keywords that a business is trying to rank for. And you can actually reverse engineer, like, this is how much it's going to cost to get the number of leads I want, or, just use that as your budget. Like, hey, if what's the conversion rate? What's the cost per click? Here's what my budget's going to be. Mm-hmm. And not even many businesses in the ad world The Google Ads world actually do that kind of homework. They just try to get people to spend their money and, not even plan it out properly.
So you guys are in this. You guys are in this world. I'm going to ask you. So we just ran, which we have not done a lot of, but we ran a campaign on LinkedIn, and targeted. And it came back yesterday, at least. Well, we're watching it as it goes through, and it was like it comes back to $43 a click.
Yeah,
click through. To me, seems kind of high, but I don't know. Is that kind of high? I mean, granted, if it becomes, if I could get on the phone with that person, have a one-on-one, and bid a job, that's worth it. But if it's just somebody looking, and it's $43, it's like, ooh, man, that could get steep pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like what you really need to do is.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
So you need to take it back to the client acquisition cost, right? Because if you can get every one of those turns into a client, that's a really good deal. If 1 out of 100 turns into a client, it's probably not a very good deal, right? So you need to take it further down the funnel and apply. And I literally did this exercise for 2 different potential clients this week. And one of them, actually, just before the podcast, I told them, I said, I don't think this is going to be cost effective for you. And they came back and said, yeah, with the numbers that you did, all the way down to the bottom of the funnel, and the client acquisition cost, it just doesn't make sense right now. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, but as we were saying that, so you look at 100. So if your cost per click, so say you have to spend, $5,000 in clicks, but it gets you a $10,000 customer. I mean, even if it gets you a $7,000 customer, realistically, that's working, right?
Yeah, you got to throw in all the rest of the math, but yeah.
Oh, that's true. No, I know. Yeah,
profit margins and but no, that's the exercise that I think, to Ian's point, that or Paul's said it in the past too, that the big ad companies just want to sell ads, and what happens after that's not their problem, right? But we need to think about that and carry it all the way through.
Yeah.
Hey, I did want to, on this paid media notion, since SC Pictures is a production company, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing and this whole democratization of video ads? Being able to advertise cheaply on streaming. There's still production costs, though, that I think are you can run an ad for pennies, but you still have to produce an ad. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen on that side of paid media?
Well, I do think in terms of the production space, there are people finding inexpensive approaches. And granted, I can't answer to if they're working, but there's definitely inexpensive approaches. And some of them, even to my eye, look good. I'm like, okay, why didn't I think of that? Or I would never have tried that because to me, it doesn't look professional enough. But no, that's what I was talking about earlier, is evolving with the times. But somebody was saying, well, there was a saying about, vertical scroll, think vertical scroll, which, don't forget, I come from a world that's horizontal,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we shoot stuff, when we do it for TikTok, or even YouTube story shorts, it's vertical. But a lot of the ad players now, it's like vertical scroll. And last night I was looking at, when I got home, my computer, I was on some news channel trying to look at, some of that New York State debate. But before every clip, there was a Volvo ad, back to the cars, but it was vertical. Now, it was a horizontal window because it was a legacy window, but it was a vertical scroll. And I'm thinking, wow, that's really interesting. Here, they probably have it horizontally as well. Why are they choosing to run it vertically? Is it because that the majority of people, digest this content on phones? It may be, I don't know, but it was really fascinating. So I think vertical's big. I mean, back to this Volvo thing that I looked at, I guess it's their current campaign, very slick, very high production, but yet shot for the vertical format. So we're also seeing stuff that's low production value that's shot on the vertical format. And I think, again, it's how do you connect?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you look at TikToks, you look at people that we get sucked into, or even on Instagram stories, you get sucked into listening to them. And I'm guilty, you know, some of them are it's very engaging. So if it's genuine and somebody grabs your attention, well, they just got your attention. So to me, that's a win for them, you know?
I think when you're talking about, there's a lot of ways to get videos made, and they're not the best, but do they get the job done? But they can be cheap. The flip side of that is, it's the saying, good, fast, cheap, pick any two, right? You need to take it back to what you were talking about earlier on with the retention and the telling the story and having the consistency. And, we said evolutionary, not revolutionary, producing stuff that will blend in with everything else you're doing, be omni-channel, play a role, and represent your brand well, not just, I can get a video out cheap and I can get the views for cheap. Let's just go do it, right? There's that whole strategy and storytelling and having some production values that go into it.
Well, I do feel like on a lower end production, say you are shooting, even on an iPhone, a vertical type thing, if you sense that you're getting traction, I think you could ramp up or ramp down from there. If you're getting traction and you're showing your product, and some of your people feel, but you need to show the product more. And so the next iteration, you do the same thing, but you show the product more. And I think there's a way for a small business. I think the opportunities are out there today for small businesses to advertise really inexpensively using video content. And it could be done on YouTube. It could be done on Instagram. It could be done, on TikTok. Mm-hmm. Some of the best campaigns, from what I understand, are happening on TikTok. And again, if you're genuine and you could connect, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good lesson. I think we should all think about it. Go simple and just tell a good story.
Well, that's a good place to head for the close. Before we do, Paul, Ian, are there any other burning questions that you guys have that we haven't gotten to? I think this has been great, but anything else before we wrap?
No, this has been great. Thank you, Stuart.
Hey, I really appreciate it, guys. It's been fun. Actually, we went down a bunch of different roads.
Yeah, that's where the fun stuff happens. That's where the magic happens, right? Paul, anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, Stuart, then we got to give you a chance to tell people more about you, what you do, how they can find you, if they want to connect.
Absolutely. Well, thanks. Well, I'm easy to find. It's stuartcohen.com, and it's STEWART. That's our production company. And my email's on there, really easy, right at the top. Just click it and send me a note, and I'll get right back to you. I'm on LinkedIn, Stuart Cohen, Instagram, SC Pictures. And then if you need to license any content for one of your campaigns, which is another thing we didn't really address, but there's plenty of content out there in the world that you could just license for a low amount and use that to help sell your product.
Including
that company is called Video and Stills, correct. Yep. And that is superstock.com. But you could always reach out to me directly, and I'd love to have a conversation and point you in the right direction and, help any way I can.
Great. Well, we certainly appreciate you being here, and wish you all the best. Our tradition,
guys, I appreciate it.
Ian usually wraps us up and takes us out, so there's nothing else to be said. Do you want to take it away, Ian?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again, Stuart, for being on here. Thank you, Jeff and Paul, for your contributions. And thank you to our listeners and viewers for being with us today. Remember to smash that the subscribe button, share it with your friends, family, pets, just spread it around, spread the love, spread the information, and be sure to be with us next week and keep calm and mark it on, folks.